This is JC Cermeño talking about entrepreneurs and talking about mind flow and mindset of how people get success in their life. First of all, in the beginning of the story, you have to make sure that you do define your own success for yourself. Everything that I do talk about is an entrepreneurial world, and you should take everything with context. There are three things that I coach people on a consistent and daily basis. The three phases that I go through is making sure, and the principle is you gotta know yourself. That's the first step. Know yourself is the first step to the core foundation of whatever it is that you're gonna do in the world. The second step is if you're building a brand and gonna be consulting and bringing uh, a business into the marketplace, you have to understand who your ideal client is. So you got to know your ideal client. And the third phase in life is to make sure that you know the game you're playing. With that being said, who am I and what do I do? As I said, I'm JC, short for Juan Carlos, born of Mexican immigrants, born in the United States, and English was my second language, as you can tell by the accent that I got going on. So, with that, it was not an entrepreneurial road for me. It was more of a figure it out as I go. I was just an athlete. And overall, I think there was nothing really special about me. It was just life happened. But in the circumstances that surrounded me, there was a lot of negativity around it. There was a lot of uh, bad influences, or there was a lot of people who really didn't see you for what you should be based upon generational frames of mind. Now, when I started exploring a little bit into my mindset of who was I really, I understood that not everything is what the environment should be around me. So I started to think a little bit differently. And I failed at so many things in my life. I quit on myself playing soccer. I really loved it. It was one of those things where I felt like I should have been somebody else, but I quit on myself. And it wasn't until much further that I realized that I had a pattern of quitting. So what happens is you keep repeating these patterns, and it isn't until you are aware of what it is that you're doing that you understand that you need to change. I know this can sound a little bit deep, but for me, this was just one aspect in the sports world. And it trickles down into the rest of your world, whether it's relationships, whether it's business, whether it's finances, or anything else. And so, my mission at the end of the day is to help people understand that they do have power to change if they want to and if they are aware to. One of the biggest things that I feel can impact people is to know themselves, which is the first phase. Knowing yourself is essential to everything that you're going to do. How do you know yourself? Well, you got to first ask the right questions. If you don't ask the right questions, you'll never get the right answers. See, most of the time, we are living on these hypnotic loops, hypnotic patterns where we wake up on a daily day basis. And what you're seeing here and what you're listening to is probably negative thinking. Negative thinking is thinking that is basically putting you down on a consistent daily basis. If you wake up and you think, how am I going to pay my bills today? What am I going to do for work today? How am I going to stop these fires? And just kind of like, how is the world crashing? Like, you can see that there's going to be a recurring pattern happening through your life. Now, negativity is a part of life, and it's very understandable to know that a lot of these things do exist, and you have to be a realist to understand that yes, there is going to be negative stuff happening, but at the end of the day, we always decide what we want to do with that negativity. Either we use it for good or we let it control us. Either we respond or we react. The biggest lesson here for knowing yourself is asking yourself, who am I really and what am I really here to do in this life? Now, this can be really hard questions to answer, and it usually takes somebody else to dig into your mind to really understand that to really understand and see something that you can't see. Let me ask you a question. Would a best brain surgeon in the world be able to do surgery on himself? The answer is probably no. And that's because no matter how good you are, no matter how good anything in life could be, you will never be able to do that upon yourself. In the brain surgery world, in the heart surgery world, anything in that kind of category, you'll never be able to save yourself if that's what the end goal was. And it's the same thing with us humans in general in our personas. It's going to take a little bit of effort or a little bit of awareness from somebody else to basically pinpoint exactly what our blind spots are. And if we don't correct those blind spots, we're going to continuously be hitting the day-to-day patterns that are keeping us down eventually. So back to the story for where I started, I was not really an entrepreneur growing up. I had never really understood that. I came to Houston at the age of 18, and I started to really just work hard at life. I had dropped out of college. I had played soccer in college, and I gave up on that dream. Came to the city of Houston at 19 years old and started working about three jobs back to back. Now, for me, because I came from a small town, that was amazing. I was making a lot of money. I was partying. I was having a good time, and I was just being super independent, which was what I was wanted to do. However, uh, I did that for several years, just working hard and really not getting nowhere. Sure, you had a lot of fun, and sure, there was a lot of exploration, but when it came down to it, I wasn't really growing. I was just basically mimicking the people who were around me. So I used to be a server and I used to be a bartender and I used to be basically the jack of all trades. And I realized that at one point, it's okay to serve and it's okay to do all these things. And you make a decent, good amount of money doing these things. However, for how long can you do and stick with that lifestyle? For me, it happened when I saw a older guy that was very good looking, probably about my age right now, which is 35, and I was 21. I saw him and I saw him in me. I said, this guy's a good looking guy. He's basically get any girl he wants. He has the capacity to be so powerful and strong and charismatic and have all the world sort of meant to him. However, he wasn't happy. And he wasn't happy because he was working for somebody else. And so when I saw him in me, I had to make a change right there and decide that's not going to be me. So I had to know myself and understand that that's not really who I am. And if I keep doing what I've been doing all the time, I'm going to keep getting what I've always gotten. So I said, what do I need to do to change? And the power of questions comes through when you ask them correctly. If you're always asking yourself why I'm always in a shitty position, then you're always going to get shitty answers. However, if you ask yourself, what is it that I need to do to get me out of this situation? Then you're going to come up with a completely different answer. So, reframing your mind and knowing yourself was one of those essential things. Now, because of recurring patterns, this decision that I made, it took me about 5 or 6 more years and a lot of heartaches to actually do something about it. Now, when I did something about it, it was completely the opposite. From bartending, I went into oil and gas and I worked construction. Construction offshore, going into different parts of the world and not never really knowing when I would be coming back home, right? So you would be going off and it was a completely different lifestyle than what I had experienced with freedom, bartending, and all these other things that I had going on. When when I decided to confront and go completely opposite of what I had always done, it was very uncomfortable. It was very uncomfortable because it wasn't easy, but I knew that growth lies in uncomfort. irrefutable zones. And so I challenge myself to do that. And I try to challenge you as well too, to make sure that if there is something that you are doing and you're not getting the results, then it's probably lies on the other side of the spectrum, what you want to accomplish. They say the magic lies where you're trying to avoid that work. And so I did that, and it taught me a lot of things. It taught me a lot of leadership, and it taught me a lot of discipline, which is what I needed. So I had to really know myself in order for me to make a change. And like I said, these questions don't really come easily, and they don't really come unless you are willing to be aware of them. So the trauma in life and anything else that you do is going to either bring that awareness. Necessity is such a huge human driver for us to want to grow and want to build. And that's one of the things that I have basically formulated and understood in my mindset about knowing myself, that how do you turn a negative situation into a positive one? So every single negative situation that I've been in has, in fact, turned into something good because I was able to reframe my mind. Now, knowing yourself goes a little bit deeper than just asking yourself questions. It's really, really, really about being aware of who you are and what are you projecting into this world. So that's the first phase that I coach people when it comes down to understanding and getting the results that they really want, especially when it comes to entrepreneurial and business world. The entrepreneur and business world is full of a lot of people who are basically trying to do what it is that you do. And you will never, ever be able to do anything twice. There's no formula that works twice. So you got to understand that the uniqueness in anything that is out there, whether it's a product, whether it's a service, or whether it's your own expertise, you have to understand that you are the unique mechanism that is going to help differentiate you and create your own market when it comes to building a business. So the first phase is knowing yourself. Once you get to know yourself, once you get to realize what it is your weaknesses and what your strengths are, then you can move on to another phase of building up an audience into understanding who is your ideal client. Knowing your ideal client is as powerful as knowing who you are, but not quite. Knowing the ideal client takes a little bit of market research and macro level in, inspection of what it is that is going on in their heads. Okay. So when you understand that an ideal client is somebody that you want to really serve, you have to really understand what their pain points are and what their pleasure is. Understanding where they are stuck and where they want to go, their heaven and their hell, is going to make the world of a difference into you being able to articulate and communicate what it is that they need. So in this entrepreneur world, it's all about finding solutions, finding the solution to a big pain problem. The bigger the pain problem is, the bigger the money you're going to get. And that's just facts. So when you identify the ideal client, it's not just about trying to make the money, but it's about really understanding what it is that's going on in their heads. And you have to really be very, very aware of that. So you got to go in first and then you go out. That's how it goes. And if you don't go out and if you don't care for the other people out there, then you really don't have a service, or you don't really have something that could make a difference in this world. Now, knowing the game is the third phase that I coach people in when it comes to business or marketing and entrepreneurship. Knowing the game is completely dependent upon who you are and who your client is, because each market is completely different. Each market is going to be on different aspects of the different realms or in different platforms. For example, if you have Facebook versus Instagram versus YouTube versus Google, they're all great platforms, However, each one of them caters specifically to a different audience and in a different mind frame. So once you understand who you are, what it is that you do, and once you understand who your ideal client is and where they hang out and what it is they do, then you can formulate and create a strategy based upon that. In general, as humans, we overcomplicate things. We make things super complex when in reality everything should be simplistic and straightforward and direct. As human beings, we also are very, very prone to repeating those patterns that I mentioned and keep doing things over and over and over and wonder why things don't work out. If you really want to accelerate your mind and your goals and your success, you have to be able to put yourself outside of your comfort zone and make sure that you at least follow three of these fundamentals in what I'm explaining right here. Because if you don't, there is going to be a misalignment, and whether it is that you're starting a business or you already have a business, if you're not fitting in, if you're not 100% confident in each one of those areas, you'll never get there. So, understanding that is the foundation of the basic principles of how I've been able to take several companies from 6 to 7 figures and now even 8 figures. And just understanding that once you get the core foundation and once you simplify things and once you understand what is the game that you're playing in, you can make a difference in this world. And it starts with the mind and it starts with your belief. And if anything, there's anything that I would help or help to accelerate somebody's success, it would just to be believe in yourself no matter what. Because the world out there is not friendly and it's not going to be a very easy place to handle because it's literally meant to test you. The bigger the test, the bigger the reward. It's up to you not to quit. At the end of the day, make sure that whatever it is that you do, do it with a lot of heart, do it with a lot of passion. And if you want to accelerate your business, hire somebody who's been there before you and he'll get you there. My name is JC. Thanks so much for watching.